The water under our feet is necessary for life.
It's not renewing, and when it's gone for good.
We're pulling so hard. At what point do we rob from our neighbor?
They're headed to a race to the bottom.
When the pursuit of their American dream affects my American dream, there's a problem.
Can you maintain the culture? Can you maintain the general economy?
I don't want to see my community die.
We love what we do. I want to die right here. Just like Moses in the Bible, they put my bones right here.
When we first started coming down here, we'd go to one of the restaurants in town. Farmers would be there, and the residents would be there. We'd be all hanging out together, and it was a good thing. I want to say about 10 years ago, we had a little change in the community. We started seeing more of what I call, for lack of a better term, industrial agriculture. And the pumping of groundwater went up dramatically. The first sign of trouble, we began to see sand and red clay in our water. Pretty soon our pump burned up in our well, and we had a well driller come and look at it. Told us that we needed to deepen our well, that we were caught in the cone of depression. Our water dropped from about 290 feet to about 380 feet in about 10 years' time, and so it dropped pretty significantly.
In the urban areas, there's active management areas. In those areas, groundwater is well regulated. It's measured, it's understood. But outside of those active management areas, which is, we're talking about the rural areas of the state, there was no regulation put on groundwater.
Being Westerners, we don't like control. We just don't. It's not who we are.
You think way back to the 1980 Groundwater Management Act, the sentiment there was not just no, but hell no. That's the Wild West out there, and government regulation was not welcome. There was a big effort to put in an active management area about a year ago. 2 active management areas, the one in Douglas passed, the one in Wilcox did not.
I didn't support it. I didn't think it was needed.
Didn't really have to do with not acknowledging that something needs to be done, and they just felt that was the wrong tool.
One thing that we're realizing is if we don't come up with solutions ourselves, we're going to have the state mandate things. That's one of our biggest fears. Even though restrictions would not really affect us here on the ranch, it would affect my community. I don't want to see my community die.
It's frustrating that your neighbor comes in and in the pursuit of the American dream, which I'm not against that. I don't want to be against anybody's pursuit of the American dream, but when the pursuit of their American dream affects my American dream, there's a problem. And it seems reasonable to me that we should discuss it and come to a way of managing a finite resource, which is what groundwater is.
This is a community that has been in deep conflict over water issues for a very long time, and they didn't let that stand in the way of them getting together, talking intimately about some of the least comfortable and maybe scariest topics they face every day.
One of the principals of one of the largest industrial agricultural operations stood at one of the whiteboards and said to me, "We're simply going to have to use less water." To hear that was really encouraging.
It's been fun to watch neighbors that were pit against each other to come together in one room. I went from not helping at all to on the Governor's Water Council, and honored to be there and honored to be a part of the solution rather than part of the problem.
They believe now that they can live together, and they want to continue meeting, and they want to continue working together and finding solutions to these things. But they want to be sure that as a group, that if they ever make any policy type recommendations, that it's a consensus of the group, which gives them a lot of political power.
Okay, that was a quick glimpse of the work that we did in the Sulphur Springs Valley and has really inspired us to do these workshops. The full-length documentary that we produced is on our website. So thanks everyone for joining us for our webinar on Rural Groundwater Resilience Workshops. I'm Susan Craig. I'm the Program Director for the Arizona Water Innovation Initiative's Impact Water Arizona program at ASU. And today we're introducing our Rural Groundwater Resilience Workshops, and I'm really excited to be partnering on this effort with the University of Arizona and the Babbitt Center for Land and Water Policy, as well as all of our collaborators across the state to host a series of these workshops. So we're hopeful that these workshops will help drive important community action for sustainable groundwater management. So a few standard housekeeping items. Please mute yourself when not speaking. We are really hoping to encourage active participation today. So there are a couple of interactive polls that we have mixed in. We're going to be using Slido. So please have your cell phones ready, handy to scan the QR code with your camera. And I see everyone is putting their introductions in the chat. That's fantastic. And if you haven't, we just ask if you could please put your name and where you're from in the chat. So we'd like to get a feel for who's joined us. Also wanted to mention that as far as questions go, please put your questions in the chat. On Zoom, Faith Kearns, who is our Director of Research Communications at ASU, is monitoring the chat and will answer all the questions at the end of the presentation. As far as the agenda goes, the first hour is going to be spent on workshop goals, identifying the why we're taking this on. It's also going to cover the importance of community action and then the application process. We'll have about 15 minutes at the end for questions, and this time is designed for the benefit of the whole group, all of the participants. But at 1 o'clock, feel free to hop off if you want. We have set aside for those who have a specific idea or questions where they'd like some more individual time. We've got an hour set aside for the live Q&A or the office hours portion of the webinar. So I'm thrilled to introduce our speakers for today's webinar. I'm Susan, and I'm going to cover the workshop goals. Kristen Keener-Busby and Christian Sawyer are going to talk about the importance of community action. Kristen is the Associate Director of Program Implementation at the Babbitt Center, and Christian is an Arizona resident who lives in the Douglas Groundwater Basin and is committed to protecting groundwater in his community. And then Neha Gupta, she is the assistant professor at University of Arizona. She and I met less than a year ago, and we met at the workshop of the video that we showed, our work in Sulphur Springs. And I really think it's a lot to do with her that we're here today talking about these workshops. So this is our first poll. So please use your phone's camera. If you haven't done this before, use your phone's camera, scan the QR code, and you should see a poll question that comes up and you can answer. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, interesting. We have more education than anything, but I do think it just gives us a quick flavor of who we have with us. Hopefully we have many different people, organizations represented. I know a lot of people really care about groundwater, and so I'm thankful. Thanks for answering that. We have a couple more mixed in here. So I wanted to just share a few quick words on the Arizona Water Innovation Initiative and Impact Water. First, I wanted to say just a huge thank you to the state of Arizona and the Virginia G. Piper Charitable Trust for investing in ASU and for funding these workshops. Impact Water is the program that I direct, and it's focused on engagement and translation of data. We want to make sure that we're engaging people in all different types of styles, empowering them with resources and data, and then really hoping to inspire and activate change. The goals of this program, I think, really perfectly align with what we want to do with these workshops. So you're obviously all here and tuned in because you're concerned about groundwater, and there's a reason why we have so many people interested and so many people that care about groundwater. Climate change and groundwater issues are really top of mind in Arizona. And in a recent poll of 800 registered voters conducted by Morning Consult on behalf of the Walton Family Foundation, this just happened in May. Couple of stats: 80% agree that urgent action is needed and Arizona should invest now in groundwater management to safeguard our water resources. 88% say that they're concerned about groundwater supplies in Arizona and believe that limiting unregulated groundwater pumping should be a priority for the state. So there's a reason that people are concerned. We live in a semi-arid to arid state where groundwater is withdrawn faster than it's replenished. Plus, we have long-term drought impacts. They're impacting our renewable surface water, increasing demand for water, and then we have cuts to the Colorado River as well. And increased groundwater pumping, of course, reduces the availability of this finite water supply for our future needs. We already have areas where groundwater supplies are stressed in Arizona. Here, this map shows the pink and the red areas on this map indicate groundwater level declines over time. This map was produced by the Kyle Center for Water Policy, one of the 5 pillars of the Innovation Initiative, part of the blueprint, Arizona Water Blueprint. But, you know, for instance, the Gila Bend Basin, over a period of 10 years, the median rate of groundwater level change was almost 4 feet per year. And then in the Wilcox Subbasin, we looked at the 1-year period, what I pulled up here, and the median rate of groundwater level change was about 3.5 feet per year. So, you know, as groundwater levels fall, we have a lot of other impacts. We've got aquifers collapse, in some cases, land subsides, and minerals and pollutants concentrate in the diminished supply that is left. And I love this quote, you know, if we could see with our own eyes, like we do with the iconic bathtub ring of Lake Mead, if we could see what's happening with our groundwater, it would be easier for us to understand why we need to better manage these resources. And there's a real compelling need for action now. That is one of the reasons why we spent 2 days or many days, but we did a 2-day workshop in the Sulphur Springs Valley. And this focused on the significant declines that have happened over the years in the Wilcox and Douglas groundwater basins. So in September of last year, ASU, in partnership with the Babbitt Center, we collaborated with the community to hold a workshop in the Sulphur Springs Valley to address groundwater depletion. They came up with 100 different strategies that they all agreed were really important and wanted to prioritize. And they're really taking these next steps to make those happen. They've created the Sulphur Springs Water Alliance and have hired a coordinator to move things forward. We also did a workshop in the Verde Valley recently. We did one in March, and although not focused on groundwater, this workshop was cool. It had an intergenerational component where we had local community members. We had students that were all as young as 17, and then more seasoned career folks, all sitting around the table talking about water issues in the Verde Valley. And another thing that I loved about this model of the workshop was that it resulted in 3 community-led student projects. So in this project, we partnered with ASU's Project Cities. And Project Cities is a university community partnership where students and faculty work with the city to implement a project. It's a really fantastic model, something that we might think about moving forward with these workshops. And they have tons of success on these projects. Okay, so based on the success of the workshops that we've recently done, we want to do more. You know, we were really inspired by the work that we did, and we want to offer this to more communities around the state. So our workshop goals are engage, empower, and activate, and we're activating change for sustainable groundwater management. Universities, I feel, are uniquely positioned to provide a neutral convening. We can provide the facts and assist with resource development. And we've heard and we've seen that it's really helpful to have outside groups facilitating dialogue in a process like this. And then we want to empower. We heard over and over in Sulphur Springs the need for trusted and reliable data. And we want to empower communities with this exact thing, trusted and reliable data and resources. We think this plays to the university's strengths as well as our partners. And then we have a vast ecosystem of resources and knowledge. We also want to utilize some of that time for hands-on guidance using the resources. So then lastly, the ultimate goal is to activate change for sustainable groundwater management. This is really the implementation piece where we're implementing the strategies that come out of these workshops. And we want to ensure sustainable use and protect and conserve the resources. A couple of key components that make this effort unique and worthwhile. We have a call for interest out. Hopefully everyone that's joined us has seen our call for interest, but we're hoping to get a lot of applications of interest and prioritize these communities based on the needs. We have developed a strong foundation network that we've created called what we're calling the Resource Strategy Group. And we will look at those the applications of interest as a group, and we will strategize to provide support to these communities who have applied. Everything's locally driven. So again, hopefully you saw this in our advertising of the workshops, but we want to, everything's going to be customized, tailored for each groundwater basin, and everything's locally driven. And then the last component that I wanted to share, and Neha's going to go into more detail about this, is this idea of sustained engagement. We don't want to just have a workshop and say, hope you got a lot out of it. We want to have some components in place, some resources in place to take those next steps, to take some of the next steps to make those strategies that we come up with reality. And just can't say enough about this, I feel like, great network that we've developed over the last couple of months. You can see the partners that we are working with, and there are some others that are happy to support. So thank you for those online who have joined us today. But really, you know, it does take a village, and I think we've created a really great group here. I just wanted to say one more word about the Resource Strategy Group. Again, the review of the applications of interest, strategize and prioritize assistance to the community. So I just want to say, I would encourage you, even if you don't know exactly what a workshop would look like in your community and you don't have all of the pieces, go ahead and apply. Let us know what your resource needs are and what would work for your community or what you think would work. And we will work together as a team here with our collaborators to come up with a plan. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to my good friend, Kristen, who's going to talk about the importance of community action.
Great. Thanks, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here today as one of the lead partners in this effort. And just so quickly, a little bit about why the Babbitt Center is here. For those of you who don't know, a core mission of the Babbitt Center for Land and Water Policy is helping communities build their capacity for stronger integrated land and water decisions about their future. And we actually are a center within a widely respected land policy think tank called the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy. And this institute really for generations has been a go-to well-established force for land policy change that's really informing sustainability practices around the world. And there's just so much uncertainty about water and other factors driving significant change in communities. A lot of our engagement efforts have been really focused on helping communities dynamically plan for a future where the only true certainty is more change. Next slide. A thriving community, and I think we know it's a real world ecosystem, and it grows and prospers with opportunities, but all communities also have complex issues that are not easy to solve. And planning for water resiliency is one of those wicked challenges that we wish solving for were only this easy. If we could just define the problem, choose a solution, and voila, we fixed it, all would be great. But in reality, planning and water management community crosses all kinds of natural, political, cultural, economic, land use boundaries, and these really do not match up easily at all. And this is why this graphic is actually a little bit more emblematic of a typical community planning process. It's just not linear. It requires symbiotic relationships because so many groups, so many issues and solutions interrelate and overlap. And it's truly why getting on the ground in communities for local action is just so important. I'm a community development professional, urban planner, land use policy professional, actually. I've been working with Arizona communities for over 20 years. And I know the foundation of a good community planning process encompasses deliberate, positive efforts to meet people where they're at, helping people have seats at big, inclusive tables, getting diverse, multiple sectors perspectives. So it's so important. Planning for their own future needs, because issues like water just don't have that one solution. There's no silver bullet. And these processes really can help guide those suite of local actions that are necessary to build resiliency and support thriving futures and communities. So, Susan mentioned, and you saw the video, we were partner on the effort in Sulphur Springs and a couple other engagement programs, we help lead. And in most of those efforts, we act as important conveners to conversations around water and land policy. Actually, in fact, a number of our close partners and some of those other efforts are on this call. But a few important elements we have learned along the way include that, if we can just give community stakeholders that, the valuable time and space to come together to work through their own unique issues, you can really build platforms for healthy, enduring collaboration. And it's the communities themselves who are the experts to define their own key issues. They co-design the process from start to finish, and we're there to help facilitate the discussions about the future, what the important challenges are, and the possible solutions. And it's really important to think this way, that every community is different. When you work in one rural community, you've worked in one rural community. And that's why it's so important that the community is just alongside, actively partnering, co-convening, co-designing what works for them, conceptualizing scope, the specific needs, what the timelines are, and who, and to help secure those commitments from who should be there for participating from a broad spectrum of community stakeholders participating. Local champions are they're essential. They are incredibly important to help shepherd the process, especially initially, and to attract more people who can find ownership roles in some of the different activities. And while we act as facilitators, the engagement is supported, not driven by subject matter experts. And as Susan described, what we intend to do with this effort, we can help develop the resource infrastructure, the technical support, the neutral facilitation, additional research and data. We invest in capacity assistance throughout the process, leading up to and during, and then even post efforts to keep things moving on the ground forward. And then the overall process focuses on action, developing action-oriented plans that can be implemented, that maintain that commitment beyond discussions and planning. So these are just a couple of examples of some of the outcomes from this work that we've done engaging communities in water resiliency planning. Really the sweet sauce is getting people from different viewpoints to come together and find that common ground, engaging with each other. It's helped build networks of people willing to implement actions. It's been exceptionally exciting establishing these strong ongoing relationships through the formation of some watershed partnerships, like Susan mentioned, the Sulphur Springs Water Alliance that's in Cochise County. And the commitments have actually carried forward in formalized ways through signed charters and agreements and the development of vision and mission statements. It's built potential for leveraging resources and helped kind of keep people from duplicating efforts. Momentum's been excited through specific actions that can really be undertaken in some ways, sometimes immediately, and then in the next 2 to 3 years. And it's finding homes for activities with people who can monitor and report on progress of activities implemented. But one really exciting feature has been some of this local action work has really grown the chances of these important local efforts being funded. For example, we did another workshop in Mesa County, similar to the one in Cochise County. We held one in Mesa County, Colorado. And they also formed a watershed partnership, and they were recently awarded a Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart Cooperative Management Grant to provide them funding to continue their local efforts moving forward around their water management needs. So now we're gonna do just a little bit of a break just to kind of get a sense for what people are feeling about on this call. This should, I think, just pop up automatically, but if not, you can feel free to rescan. But if you could put one word about how you feel about groundwater resilience in your community. Okay, well, it gives us a flavor. It is interesting to see how people are feeling. And you got some differences, but it's also interesting to see in a group as diverse as this, you got some shared feelings about what's happening in your communities around water. This is my last slide, and I'm just gonna we know collaboration is quite a buzzword. I mean, it's probably one of the more often overused words, but it's just hard to deny its potential. And it's been really exciting to see it play out in some important ways at the local level, helping communities think about a more secure water future. And it's just my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Christian Sawyer. Susan said, he's with the Douglas Basin of Sulphur Springs Valley in Cochise County. He's going to give us a real lived on the ground experience. Christian is a local champion, and he was our local champion actually for that effort that helped bring a cross section of local farmers, business, and community leaders together through an exploratory scenario planning, thinking about the future of water and ag in the Sulphur Springs Valley. So thanks, Christian, for being here and talking about why you do what you do, and for giving us a little detail on some of the tangible outcomes that are rooting in your community.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. One of my hopes is that as more rural communities in Arizona form workshops and maybe organizations, associations, alliances like ours in Sulphur Springs Valley, that I will one day be able to sit in a workshop of multiple basins stakeholders coming together to talk about things like water policy and the different needs that different basins have. And partly that's because as important as all this stuff is in principle, it's really about people at the end of the day. And one of the great joys of this workshop was making a lot of new friends. I cherish all of the people I've gotten to meet and the relationships I've built, and I would look forward to meeting more people throughout Arizona, learning about other basins. I liked the poll that you just did, Kristen, because I think it speaks to something that I was going to try to say, which is that for me at least, this workshop was kind of an adventure. There was uncertainty, there was hope, there was stress and excitement and challenge and urgency and caution, all these things. It didn't feel procedural. There was not a guidebook, you do X, Y, and Z. So what I wanted to spend my time talking about is a little of why this can be a hopeful mountain peak in the distance for any given community to seek after, and then a little bit of what the experience was like for me, so that maybe we can mitigate some of the uncertainties of how to actually achieve bringing a bunch of different people from your community together for 2 days, which is not the easiest thing to do, but it's fun if you like a good challenge and some adventure, and it's very rewarding. So one of the things that made me want to pursue this workshop in the first place and reach out to Lincoln when they had their request for proposals was a belief I have that groundwater is a community-wide issue, and so it's going to require a community-wide solution. And I saw that as I was getting involved with water issues locally, was that you had a bunch of disconnected conversations, and that's not going to be how we're going to get anything done. Quite the opposite. It just kind of stalls everything out. So I strongly believed that we needed to bring people together. And I'm glad we did, because we're already seeing the fruits beyond just the workshop. Wilcox, the city of Wilcox, who participated, they've recently gotten really on top of water issues. They've won some very impressive grants for fixing up their water systems, for designating the local Wilcox Playa as a wildlife refuge, which is pretty incredible. I mean, these things are all still in the works, and now they're looking to expand their water district to get more water to more people. The city of Douglas, which recently attended I think a WaterWise workshop, something like this. And when they came back, the mayor spoke at a city council meeting and said, you know, when it comes to water, we can't just keep managing. We have to start dreaming about the future, which that was a really great thing to hear, because I wasn't hearing a lot of talk about water, these groundwater issues from the local cities previously. So I'd like to think, and I assume to some extent, that the workshop has helped foster these important conversations that have led to action. And the thing I like the most that has happened is that the Wilcox NRCD has begun the pursuit of a streambed restoration project for Turkey Creek. And I was recently able to facilitate a conversation between the NRCD and a rep from Borderlands Restoration Network to talk about their youth program with our local city of Douglas's youth, and getting them out there to help with that project. That's just the beginning of a conversation. But if we can see our local youth from high schools and college out learning about our local ecology, our land, our water, learning skills, learning teamwork, seeing that example of different agencies and groups coming together to get important work done, that would be probably the most personally rewarding near-term outcome of all of this. So it's very exciting. Man, I have so much to say, and I only have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to have to speed run. A few of the things that really, I think, helped me bring people together was having an entrepreneurial spirit, believing in that vision, and not being afraid to fail, having salesperson skills. I kind of knew my product, and when people would get skeptical, I knew how to sell it to them, right? I was like, no, this isn't necessarily like that other workshop you attended. This is different. There will be follow through. There will be good representation. And I think some amount of good team building skills is important, which is maybe a mix of a little bit of leadership, a little bit of mediation skills, but basically being able to smooth out the edges that are there when you get people who haven't talked to each other before in the same room. Those are all really helpful things, and it might not be all in one person. It might be in a core group of people. And if it doesn't sound like that's your skill set, you might know someone who is, and you can reach out to them and be like, hey, if you're in the mood for an adventure, you care about groundwater, here's a really great opportunity. And of course, having Lincoln and ASU and the Babbitt Center, U of A and the Babbitt Center, all there is going to be really helpful as well. And the last thing I'll say, this is kind of I don't know who needs to hear this, and I'm hoping that this recording makes it to the right people. I want to say a few things about strategy. To kind of make it a little easier, I really thought hard about who to invite and in what order. I started with county supervisors, and I picked the county supervisor who I know loves to talk, because I knew she would want to participate. And then when she said yes, I got to approach everyone else with the bolstered sales pitch of the county is involved. That was very helpful. I knew that Ed Curry would be a really great, respected local farmer to have, but I didn't know Ed. But my good friend Mark Spencer knew Ed, and I knew Mark would be interested. So I got Mark bought in. He got Ed bought in. Ed got like 10 people bought in. And if I had approached people that might have had less chance of buying in at first before that, they might have made up their minds at the get-go, and then there would not have been a second chance to invite them later. So I really tried to organize things so that I got the easy yeses that make other yeses easier as well. I've got about 30 seconds. I think I will end on the point that I really believe that anyone can do anything to help make this happen. Like even it's like the butterfly effect, right? If you care about it and you want to see something happen, you can do this much, and that might be the spark that catches fire. So I would encourage you to I don't know, do anything that comes to mind. Take a chance, roll the dice, you know. And if enough people do that, the odds improve that we start to see solutions happen. So thank you so much for your time. I'm really psyched that people are here and learning about this, and I think it's the beginning of a brighter future for our groundwater in Arizona. Should I introduce Neha? Or is she going to introduce herself?
Either way, I can go ahead and introduce myself. And thanks, Christian, for your plug of support. And yeah, I think, that's the most important part is, just taking a chance, taking a step forward. And so that's what I'm here to talk about. We didn't want to spend, the whole hour talking at you. So we're going to end a little early so that we can, with the presentation, so that we can actually engage with you guys in further discussion. So I'll just give a quick introduction to myself and where I'm coming from. My name is Neha Gupta. I'm coming from the Arizona Institute for Resilience at the University of Arizona. We're an interdisciplinary institute that works across campus with local communities and internationally, focused on environment and societal resilience topics, water being one of our core topics. Myself, I'm a hydrologist with a background in local Arizona water resource issues. I also wear a few different hats related to this as a facilitator, really wanting to support and push forward, collaborative efforts to manage our water resources, and a science communicator, thinking about how do we make our data, our information, our complex outcomes more usable for people on the ground trying to make decisions. And we go to the next slide. There we go. So I'll just go over a few slides that really get into some nuts and bolts about the application and the workshops. So starting out with eligibility, we have this very broadly defined because we want anyone who's interested and has a role to play in their communities to apply. So this can be governments, community leaders, nonprofits, community development groups, water irrigation districts, watershed partnerships, and unaffiliated community members, residents, business owners. If you're interested, we would really like to hear from you. We do ask that you be located within Arizona, have concerns related to groundwater depletion, be open to forming these partnerships, as Christian just discussed, including building out a group of participants and stakeholders for the workshops. We go to the next slide. I'm sorry, I talk very fast. I'll keep you on your toes. So we have a relatively quick timeline. So this won't be a process that drags out forever and you say, will we actually be holding a workshop? Where we are right now is our applications are open. We'll begin our initial review of applications starting this Friday. So anyone who's interested and wants to get an early eye, we encourage you to submit your application early. Our deadline is September 16th. So a little over a month from now is the total deadline. And then we'll be reviewing those applications with our resource strategy group and notifying our communities towards the end of the fall of this year. And then we will start developing workshops in the fall and winter of this year to ideally implement the end of this year, the winter, through early spring of 2025. So it's really focused on getting these workshops, off the ground and going by early next year. And next slide. There are a few components that can really help make a successful application. For us, it's really helpful if you can describe your groundwater challenges, your goals in hosting these workshops, describing, is there a community will to act that's already been developed, or is this something that might be a goal of the workshops? This includes opportunities for diverse, local engagement. Again, going back to what Christian said of how do we pull together people to really have diverse representation of voices, and of course, having capacity to participate in this planning. You won't be bearing the brunt of the planning. We have a great team that's much bigger than just the speakers that you're hearing from, to really provide a lot of support to help get these things off the ground. Then, so in developing the workshops, you may be wondering, how do we even get there to where we're inviting people and know what we're going to talk about? We're really going to work through this both with our broader group of partners and with a local group. So really defining first, what are the key goals and issues to be addressed with these workshops? How do we want to use these workshops to queue up for future work or opportunities? What type of structure will lend itself to supporting those goals in terms of speakers, discussion topics that you might want to really dive into, different types of structures to have conversations, especially if you're having really tough conversations that you may not want to have in front of a whole group. This is where guided small group conversations can be really helpful. What kinds of topics do you really want to dive into? What kind of speakers, experts, can be useful to really dive into this? And again, who do you want to make sure is at the table and that we're hearing from, so that that you're really moving forward as a community and as a collective. And next slide. We're getting close to the end, so don't worry, we only have like a few more slides. This slide is really focused on what are the types of things that might occur in the workshop. This is just some examples. It's not limited to this. We can cover background of Arizona water management efforts and roles that different organizations might have. I'm talking about different strategies that other communities have used and how they might be tailored to a more local context, links to funding and other resources and programs available. This includes things that might be offered by other organizations operating in the state, a guide on different tools and resources that can provide information to help you make decisions about your community and how you want to move forward, primers on legislative and regulatory contexts at multiple levels that might be especially relevant to your community, and going into detail on solutions that might be, bigger picture solutions or require additional partnerships for managed aquifer recharge, improving irrigation efficiency, reducing demand, building additional partnerships and incentives for local residents. And next slide. And you've heard a bit about sustained engagement and how the goal of this is not just to have a workshop and walk away and said, okay, great, we checked the box. This is really meant to be an opening and the starting point for what we're seeing is sustained engagement. This can look like seed funding, just like Lincoln Institute provided some funding for a coordinator to help get the Sulphur Springs Water Alliance off the ground. Projects, including through ASU Project Cities that can bring together coordinators, experts, and students. There are multiple types of programs that we can pull from being housed within the universities. Data liaisons to work with communities on data and research updates. This can be anywhere in the state. We're really not limited to, looking at communities in our own backyard. Partnerships with additional agencies, funding opportunities, or technical support for funding opportunities that some of our partners may be able to provide. And this is just a sampling of what sustained engagement could look like. We have what we're calling off-menu or a la carte options that may be developed based on conversations and kind of specific local context and discussions that point us towards what might really be needed or helpful to push things forward. And now I'll wrap up this with just going through some examples of some tools and resources being housed in the universities. There's, a plethora of tools and resources. So we just wanted to give a quick snapshot on what some of these might look like that may be helpful or that you're welcome to explore even before these workshops. So Susan covered the Arizona Water Blueprint developed by the Kyle Center that provides a lot of information related to groundwater level changes across the state and on a groundwater basin basis so that you can see what's happening in your neck of the woods. And then next slide. I'm sorry, I do talk so fast. County water fact sheets provided by the Water Resources Research Center at the University of Arizona. They do a really great job of pulling together information for counties across the state that are accessible. They have really nice graphics, really nice summaries, and have really been developed by a host of experts and local partners to provide information, and they're continuously updated. So I really encourage people to take a look at these as well. And then we have one more. Let's go next. And so this is a project that's in development that we think could be really helpful to help support some of the workshops or information as it's being developed. There's a project called the Arizona Tri-University Recharge and Water Reliability Project that I've also been a part of. It brings together researchers and experts across the 3 state universities, so University of Arizona, Arizona State University, and Northern Arizona University. That's really focused on looking at what types of water might be available for capture that's lost to the atmosphere, so evaporation or evapotranspiration from plants, stormwater from urban development, where across the state can water be recharged, where do these areas overlap, and developing a prioritization framework that can help communities and water managers make decisions based on technical information. So this will include statewide estimates of different components of the water cycle, so rainfall, evaporation, statewide suitability for recharge, and links to all kinds of information developed as part of the project. And I know I've covered a lot of information, and so we wanted to kind of bring it back to you guys and wrap up with another question for you. So it's the same Slido that you've been answering on, and so we'll just take a couple moments for you guys to answer, and this is very interesting for us too, about what kinds of topics related to groundwater management are you interested in for your community? And it might be a big question to ask at once. So just whatever comes to the top of your head, just pop it in. There's no wrong answers. Seeing a lot of recharge, data, youth engagement. Getting a pretty diverse responses now. So we have some mining concerns, protecting irrigation water rights, understanding what are the most protective groundwater laws out there, what's worked, addressing insecurity. And for all of you guys replying, we really encourage you to continue to engage with us during their question and answer portion as well.
Okay. Thanks, Neha. Thanks, everyone, for participating. I think those answers are going to be really helpful to look back on. So thank you. And thanks, team. Great job. Christian, I love that you said the butterfly effect, and I do hope that we have that throughout the communities here in Arizona, because I think, we may not agree on the path or the measures that are needed here, but we all have this care for our groundwater resources. So I love the butterfly effect. Just a couple of closing comments before we take questions. Again, just one last word of encouragement. If you feel like your community could utilize something like this, needs resources, has some problems that you would like some help with, we've got that great network that we've put together. So please do fill out an application. Let us know what your resource needs are. And our partner network is able to assist you. Also, if there's somebody online seeking to support this effort, stay on for office hours, or make sure you contact us. We have some sponsorship opportunities and just more collaboration we're open to, most definitely. And then lastly, feel free to contact myself or Neha or Kristen on any of the questions or ideas that you come up with after today. You can find our contact information on the website. So at this time, we will open it up for questions.
Susan, I'll get started with just a couple questions that were in the chat. So one of the first ones from Jordan from the Borderlands Restoration Network was specific to talking about more researchers, capstone projects, project cities in Southern Arizona, just especially because of the distance. So just wondering about resources for getting more ASU researchers to Southern Arizona.
Well, I've discussed it with the program manager, and we think that we're able to do it. So I think, yeah, I think it's not a problem. We're able to work with the communities. Again, we'd have a coordinator for the project through Project Cities. We'd have, resources for them. We'd work with faculty and students, and then work with the community. So I think we're covered.
Awesome. It looks like Ron Doba has a hand raised. Do you want to ask your question, Ron?
I do. Thank you. Susan, with the typical workshops, what kind of a time commitment are we anticipating that's needed for the participants? Are these kind of planned to be one-day workshops, or maybe roll into 2 days, or what?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. So a couple of different aspects to it, and Kristen, you can, and Neha, feel free to chime in. But as far as the workshop goes, our plan is that it would be one full day, but we would like to do a networking event the night before, so people are comfortable with each other, have an opportunity to just get to know each other if they don't already on a more personal level. So we're planning to do that and show the film, actually, the documentary that I played. Or the snapshot of the documentary that I played. So a networking event the night before, a full day workshop, but a lot of the work happens with the local steering committee that we're hoping to develop beforehand. So Kristen, you'll probably help on this one more, because I know there's a lot of time involved with that.
Great. Thanks.
You bet.
Let's see, we had another question from Colin McKenzie that I thought was interesting for you, Susan, in terms of thinking about the role of the arts in some of these groundwater workshops. I know it's already come up and it's a focus for Impact Water Arizona, so easy for you to address, I think.
Is there a specific question, or are they going to?
I think it was just kind of like what might be the role of the arts in these kinds of workshops.
Oh, okay.
Or the projects that happen afterward or whatever.
Sure. I definitely think there could be a role. And just to speak a little bit about what we're doing with Impact Water, we've got lots of different ways of engaging, and a lot of that comes through I shouldn't say a lot, but a bit of it comes through the arts. We funded a couple of projects where interesting projects where we utilize art to engage the community. So we have actually an event coming up not too long in Douglas, where they're doing a mural painting, and it's going to be engaging the community that way. And it's all going to be about groundwater actually. So we'll post that as soon as we have that date. It's going to be in October, I believe. So yeah, I think there are some opportunities, and I think really it's going to depend on what comes out of the workshops and what the community finds most important.
All right. Do we have other questions? There are some logistical questions about the recording and if the presentation, the PowerPoint will be available afterward. I think we can handle making that available somehow.
Most definitely.
Okay. Other questions from the group? Feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. All right, we're not getting a ton more questions at this point, so we can wrap up or move into the next section, I should say. Susan, do you want to do that transition?
Sure, yeah. So thanks everyone that's going to hop off. Really appreciate you joining. And for those of you who want to stay on with us, we're going to move into the live Q&A, and we're really happy to, work individually with you in this time period. But thank you so much for joining us.